Hello everyone, welcome to this new mini-series on setting up a shooter. In this series we'll be covering the following topics: player setup, player customization, in-depth combat, enemy and AI. We'll be using Game Creator 1 with the following modules: stats module, shooter module, behavior module, and inventory module. Outside of this we'll be using the following assets: PuppetMaster, and impacts and muzzle flashes. PuppetMaster will allow us to really improve shooter gameplay to a level that is incredibly hard to do without, and impacts and muzzle flashes will be an amazing addition to the level of detail. Both of these have integrations on the Game Creator Hub, making it much easier to use them. Outside of this we'll be using animations and models, however those can be whatever you want them to be. Personally, I am choosing to use POLYGON Military simply because I have it and it's perfect for this type of game. I am using some animations from MoCap online, but again, you can use whatever you want. If you'd like to know why I'm still using Game Creator 1 for this and not Game Creator 2, it's simply because setting up a shooter without the shooter module and behavior module for Game Creator 2, it would take a lot more time and be a lot more elaborate. Can it be done? Of course it can. However, it would most likely require triple the amount of videos to set this up. Hello everyone, here we are in our scene. So I'm going to be using POLYGON Military. Not because you have to, you can literally use whatever you want. However, I've got this asset and honestly it's kind of perfect for a shooter. So if you have it, you can follow along with the steps. Again, don't really have to do that. It's more about the setup, not really the assets we're using. For animations, I'm using MoCap online. Again, completely optional. You can use whatever you want. You can make your own, use cheaper ones, whatever you want. I think the MoCap online ones are just really good. They're really complete, which makes it quite fun to use because it's, you know, it really has everything. But yeah, again, completely optional. You don't have to do any of that. So let's start off with our scene, and I'll be using just a demo scene, so I'll be duplicating that. And the reason I'm using the demo scene is because, well, it's quite good, and I don't, you know, it's a mini series. I don't want to waste too much time on the whole environment setup because yeah, it doesn't really matter all that much. So I'll create my own folder, scenes. Let's already do one for locomotion straight away, as well as, you know, that's the next step. Motion. Awesome. So yeah, let's. I'm going to drag that scene into our own scenes folder. Oh, sorry. Because I always prefer creating a duplicate, just so you always have a backup of the original one that is being used. So yeah, it just makes it tons easier. So let's open this up, and again, if you are using the same one, we definitely need to make some changes here. You know, obviously this is you know, really you know, Cinti, and there's a couple of things I don't want in there. I am using an HDRP project, so I'm definitely taking advantage of some of the advantages HDRP has. Again, it's completely optional. If you're using URP, if you're using built-in, you don't have to follow along with the basic steps. I just do it because, you know, why not? So I'll be removing one of the directional lights. Only going to be using one. I am going to crank it up to the maximum. Then the main camera, I'm making a change. So default field of view is 31, I'm doing 50, and clipping planes, I make it as small as possible, which is this basically. I'm going to use cheap anti-aliasing, so that's FXAA. I think for something like Cinti, where you don't have really fine strands of hair on realistic models, for example, that's fine. If you are following along with more realistic models that have like fine hair strands, things like that, you might notice that FXAA doesn't really do the job all that well. You might use TAA on high instead. Yes, it definitely is more performant. However, especially with realistic models and hair, you'll notice that the cheaper options just don't really do that good of a job. However, for Cinti models, this is perfect. No fine hair strands. It's a cheap anti-aliasing and it just works. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to be adding a global volume here. It's pretty similar to, if you're using URP, it's going to be pretty similar. So I'm adding real clouds because I like real clouds. Really that simple. It's going to be physically based. Sky is completely fine. Yeah, we have the cloud layer, and what I'll be removing here. So the Cinti has a dome. So we're removing the dome here. So that's basically the first thing. So now you actually notice there are clouds, which wasn't visible before. And I am removing a lot of the VFX because all of this dust blowing, it's nice, but it just clips in the ground, and maybe it's because we're using a 3D view. It just doesn't look that nice, so I'm removing all of these. Don't want them. The huge fires, all of these, literally removing all of them. They don't look good. Not in a 3D view, maybe in 2D. If you're doing top down, it looks nice. It just otherwise doesn't. And then the cloud ring, I think it's just the one ring. We can just remove that. So yeah, I'm getting rid of those basic things. Now, because I am using HDRP, we have volumetric fog, which looks nicer than the fake VFX, basically. So I'll be making use of that. So default distance, I'm actually making that quite short. So we really have that foggy look. Now it does need to be a lot lower. So basically we have like fog over the ground. It matches the environment, it matches the style, there's the type. It does mean we need to change the colors a tiny bit, because the colors don't really go along that well. This is quite sensitive, so this is for more in the back, and as you can see in the back scene here, it becomes a bit more orangey, yellowish, which is good in the desert. And then for the volumetric fog, we're doing the same thing, making it a bit more yellowy, not too much. And then basically, yeah, it fits just a lot better with the desert scene now, and you'll see once we actually hit play mode. Another thing I'm definitely doing is denoising. I'm doing both. If you just use the default Gaussian, you'll notice artifacting. If you just do reprojection, you'll notice that as well. If you use both at the same time, it looks great. I'm not really sure why. It's one of the worst things. So let's open up the cloud layer as well, because I don't like the way the clouds look now. So yes, single. However, one of the things we're changing is that when it comes to lighting, we have lighting affected, and as you can see, it drastically changes the mood in the scene as well. But it also makes the clouds just look better instead of like being overly white. Now these are not volumetric fogs. I don't need it to be that heavy. Obviously, HDRP, you can do it. Not turning on cause shadows because again, these are not volumetric fogs of clouds, so you just don't really see the point. Just takes up performance for no reason. Then outside of that, I am adding ambient occlusion. Now if you're not familiar with it, it basically adds like shadowy effects where they're not by default. I think medium is fine, and I'm increasing it to 1. Now what this actually does, and you'll see it here with the car, but let's have a look at a building, for example. We definitely need to increase that quality of the shadows a bit. But yeah, as you can see, it's like it adds, I don't know if it's like shadowy effects or whatever. It just makes everything look better. It's a really easy way to say it. Without ambient occlusion, it all looks just really static, sterile. It's a nice little touch. Obviously, the better, you can tweak the settings. you can make it look a lot better, make it be more performant. I'm fine with this. Then we're going to check our exposure as well. I'm going to keep it at automatic, and I'm not really changing all that much. I'm keeping it pretty much the same as it is by default here. The reason I'm showing this is that if you have different settings, you know, in your HDRP default settings, it might just look different. And the only thing I am changing a tiny bit is compensation, just a bit basically. Yeah, that's it. Not doing anything else. And then we have the indirect lighting controller, something that's often skipped. So it's basically to make things, you know, indoors slightly darker artificially. Outdoors you won't actually see. I mean, you definitely do see a bit of an effect here, but the effect is the most noticeable actually indoors. So yeah, it basically makes it like fake darker. It just does it better. Cool. So that's it for the volumetric settings. That's all I'm doing right now. Obviously, you know, go to town with it, have fun. There's so much more you can do. Let's rename this to game scene as well instead of demo. Just make sure you save the scene before you do that. Now, if you think this is too cloudy and it's not, you know, not really matching in that sense, obviously we can, you know, we can have that be quite a bit less as well. I think, let's have a look here. I think we can change the opacity, for example. You know, just have it be a bit less, you know, something like that. You can change the colors, you know. Anyway, so we've got the basic setup. I'm quite happy with this, but yeah, that's personal, again, not really relevant that much. So the next thing we are going to do, obviously, is going to be related to our actual setup. So first things first, let's add our camera motor. So we need a camera motor for our player. And when it comes to the camera motor, a couple of settings I'm going to do, and this is a tiny bit different than I usually do actually, and I'm going to explain why. And I think it will be quite useful to actually have the player here first, and I actually want to demonstrate why I'm doing things slightly different compared to usually. So usually this is what I do. So I'd have 0.6, 1.4, turn off zoom, there we go, and yeah, this is all fine, just to make sure it doesn't mix, doesn't cause any issues with the camera by default settings. So yeah, I would have it like this, and if we hit play mode right now, you know, you'll see the camera being like this, which I think looks pretty cool. I like the volumetric fog like this in a setting like this. I think it looks awesome. I'm actually going to remove those smokes as well. I don't like them. But yeah, I think this looks pretty good. Quite happy with that. But the problem is once I rotate, you know, there's quite a big offset. So what we'll do instead is we're going to remove this, paste it here, and do a minus in front to make sure it's, you know, the same direction. Let's hit save. And then when we hit play, it looks exactly the same. But when we rotate, you'll see that the character is not centered entirely. Let's not push it either, but is a lot more centered when we rotate around. But when just looking in front, it looks exactly the same, which is cool. I really like that. Now, next up, we are going to make another change, and that is when it comes to face direction. So this is a shooter. So what I want is when the player is standing still, I want to be able to rotate the camera and see the player. But when I'm moving, I don't want this. No, I want it to then be face direction, which is, I don't think we can change that real time right now. maybe we can, yeah, face camera direction. I want the player to move like this when we're basically, you know, moving. Looks cooler, and I mean, that's basically what most shooters do as well. I haven't really found a lot of shooters that do it the other way. But the problem is when we're standing still, you know, it's rotating with the player, and that looks awful. So we can do that. That's, you know, quite a fun thing to do actually, is we can have control over, you know, the face direction. So we're going to add a trigger. So game creator trigger. Let's give it a proper name straight away. Face direction. There we go. I'm going to remove the collider. I prefer to now remove them when they're not needed, just, you know, because gizmos is always on. And we're going to add actions here. We're going to drag those in, and we're going to be calling conditions, which we'll create in a bit. And then we're adding a wait. Now the important thing with this wait is the shorter this wait is, so, you know, if it's like 1 second, it will take a second to update those conditions, meaning that once we rotate, there's quite a delay. If we remove it entirely, it will be so fast. However, that means it does need to call on it every single frame, which I think is a tiny bit too much. So I keep it at this. If that's not fast enough for you, which I can understand, you know, add a 0 or whatever, but just for it to not be literally every frame. But again, you don't need to do that. So basically, you know, if this is 1 second, it will be slow. And, you know, the lower the value, the faster it is, but also, you know, the more requiring it is. So let's create these conditions. So we go here, conditions, and we drag them in just to make sure we don't forget that in hindsight. And then when it comes to the conditions, it's actually pretty straightforward. So we're going to use property, player is idle, and then we're going to do face direction, character direction, player, and in idle he's going to remain in movement direction because you know, we want to be able to rotate the camera around the player. Then otherwise, if the character is walking, then we're going to change it to camera direction, and if he is running, we want the same thing. And there we go. So let's give this a try. Let's see the effect of this. Awesome. So we've got the camera direction here, as you can see. You know, it's all looking good, and then when we stand still, we can rotate around. Perfect. Now by default the player is running, which is something we don't want, and I will be using stats for this. So on the player, let's put on some stats. You know what, let's actually add the shooter component already as well. So for the player we need a player shooter. So there's player shooter and there's character shooter. The difference between these two components is that by default the player shooter will have an aiming rectangle, whereas the character shooter doesn't. So character shooter, NPCs, player shooter for the player. Awesome. So let's add stats. And by default we have HP and mana if you have the stats examples installed, which I would recommend. However, what I'll do is I'll create a new stat, you know, for stamina, for running basically. So we'll go to where all of them where they all are, and we're just going to right click, game creator, stats, formula, and we'll do we'll just call it stamina as well. There we go. So we'll create a new stat, we'll drag in our formula. So the base value we want to do the same as for well, for wisdom actually is fine. So that's what mana uses. So 30 is okay. We'll just call it stamina. Stamina. There we go. And then for the attribute, we'll just rename the mana one, as we were not going to use that anyway. So stamina SP, and we'll pick our custom formula. Base value going to be at 100. There's no reason for it to be 25. And yeah, that's it. So we need to set up some triggers for that as well, and there'll be multiple triggers. Just to highlight, like we're going to set up a bit of an elaborate system, but it just consistently works. So trigger run, and this will actually have multiple. So let's get rid of that collider first of all. So we'll have key down, which is left. I'm using left shift for that. Again, you can use whatever input you want. I think left shift just makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, so we need conditions for that. Then we need a trigger for key up. There we go. Which is, you know, obviously has to be the same one. So left shift. Perfect. We'll do actions, and we're going to do another set of actions that we're actually going to add here. So actions. Call conditions and restart. Meaning, yes, we need some conditions for that as well. And there we go, and I'll explain in a bit. And then we have our last trigger, which is going to be attribute change of stamina, and then on change, and we'll call some conditions as well. Now, I do want to give these some names because otherwise it can be a bit confusing if we want to have a look again at, you know, what we're doing. So first off, conditions run. Then we have actions stop run. Then we have the calling conditions for health regen and attribute change is stop run as well. So the difference is this stop run is for when we let go of left shift, so we'll call those actions, and this is for when our stamina has been depleted and we are not able to run anymore because we no longer have any stamina. So two different sets. The actions will actually be the same. So we can already drag in stop run here, so we can just drag that in. So the same thing will happen, so we only need to use one set of actions, but these will have slightly different conditions. And let's do this first. So basically attribute value, so you know, that's going to decide when this stops, and I'm not going to do it at completely nothing, so percentage is less or equal to 0.01. Perfect. And then the actions, we'll set those up a tiny bit later. We'll come to that. We'll just go back to the first one now. This makes a bit more sense. So again, attribute value, player stamina, value is greater or equal to 0.1, then we can run. You can make that less if you want. That's, you know, it's up to you. And then it's going to execute some actions, and the actions will be drain stamina, which we need to set up as well. Just to be absolutely clear, by the way, so drain stamina, it's not going to have wait to finish. Then we have a property here, which is player can run. So this will run at the same time, and let's create those actions as well. So game creator actions, and then actions drain stamina. Cool. And we'll be calling those, executing that at the same time. But yeah, so when it comes to and we'll set those up in a bit. So when it comes to the stop run, what we're doing is actually really similar. So we'll be canceling actions, and that's the drain stamina that we're canceling. There we go, immediately, and property can run is turned off. So it's, you know, it literally does the same thing, but the opposite basically. So instead of starting it, and you can run and you can't run. So as you can see, these are now filled in as well. So they're just exactly the same ones. There's no different. All we have to do now is the regen as well. So attribute value, mana or stamina, sorry, percentage is less or equal than 1. And then we're going to attribute stamina add, and we're going to be adding 0.02. Let's copy over this this action, and then for draining, well, I'll do subtract weight 0.01, and then restart. Cool. And yeah, we'll drain more, of course, so let's say 0.04. Let's give this a try, see if this is an okay balance. So I'll leave the player selected so we can see his stamina. Cool. So if I let go, perfect. This is draining too slow, so we'll definitely increase that. But yeah, if we let go, you see it regens, and that's the nice thing. It will only regen if we actually let go of the button, or if it's depleted, which I'm not going to test now because it's draining so slow. Yeah, that's it. So it won't otherwise regen because, you know, it's those are no longer running. As you can see, that condition stops. So if we run a bit, well, we can't see it now because it just happens too fast. But yeah, basically it keeps calling those conditions, and then once the player is full, it will no longer execute those conditions. Awesome. So the only thing we do need to change is the drain rate. That is that is way too let's try this, and then maybe up the regen a bit as well. Maybe this is a bit too fast. We'll have a look. So player, I think that's a decent amount, and then as you can see, it stops, it will regen, and yeah, okay. I think personally, I think the rate is okay. The regenning is a tiny bit too slow, so we can definitely up that a bit. But yeah, I'm fine with those values. That's pretty good. Cool. So yeah, as I'm using Cinti, I'll put a Cinti character as well. So Polygon Military characters. I'm going to use this one, which is Contractor. I like it. And the thing to keep in mind here is that obviously tons of this is modular. So you know, this is all modular stuff, which we can customize to some degree, which is awesome, and we'll do that in the other video with the inventory stuff. So we can add, we can do some customization for the character as well. The important thing is that the base always remains the same. We can even swap the meshes for gender if we wanted to. So we can already use this prefab, which is perfect. We can already use that all. But basically, so we can keep the hair. Yeah, cool. Doesn't really matter right now. I don't know why I turned it even off. So yeah, for now this is all fine. We'll just use this prefab, and we'll do the customization in the next video. So on the player, let's drag in, no, not insurgent, what is it, contractor, mill. There we go. Contractor, mill, and perfect. And then what we need to set up next is, you know, locomotion. I am going to adjust the character controller as well. So it's a small thing. So first off, I turn off hand IK and head IK. If I want to use, if I ever want to use head IK, I'm actually using that. I turn that on at the moment I want to use it. I don't want it to always be on because it actually makes sure that you can't use any animations, you know, head animations, which I personally prefer. Because we are going to be using some custom animations, we need foot elevate to change a bit as well. So 0.07 I think is the default for that. And yeah, let's create those locomotions. So I'm not going to go through the entire process. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing because, you know, it's just dragging in a bunch of animations. So basically we have characters, locomotion state, and then let's rename this to player, I don't know, default locomotion or pistol locomotion. Might change it in a bit. And then what you do is simply drag in the matching animations. And we're going to do two. So we're going to do one for pistol straight away. So I should have renamed this, but I'll do that in a bit. Duplicate it, and we'll do the same for one with a assault rifle type weapon. And again, I am using MoCap online. I'll link it in the description. You don't have to use those. There's tons of these types of animations, and you can use whatever you want. I use these because I like them, and you know, I'll show why as well. So when we look at the pistol one animation, we have in place. So make sure not to select root motion animations, by the way. So in place and then looping, and then you have all of them. And as you can see, there are just so many animations, which is, you know, awesome, obviously. And then we have the looping animations, which are the ones we need to use. And by default, so we have, you know, the aim animations. So we'll do that first, actually. We scrap the AR, we'll do that later. So we'll do idle, so without aim. Where is it? So we do the relaxed state. So all of the relaxed walking animations, we'll use those, and running animations. And then we'll do another one with aim. Now, if you don't have an animation pack, or you're making them yourself and you don't want to make those, you can use the masking, which game creator examples do by default for shooter. However, if you've tried that, you notice that it can be a bit wobbly and wonky. So I'm not doing that. I do two full locomotions for default with pistol and aiming with pistol. So two full-on locomotions. And this pack has those. I think most of them will have those, actually. It's not that special. And then basically we do, you know, relaxed, so pistol down, and we'll do aimed as well. And, you know, for both aimed walking and relaxed walking. So yeah, it's time to basically drop in animations. So we'll do, I'll rename them, but yeah, aim and, you know, not aim, pistol animations. Cool, see you in a bit. Awesome. So like I said, you know, this is everything I've set up. So we have these are the aim animations. So we have stand, aim, and we have then aim, jog, and walk. So I'm not using running if you are using the same animation packs, by the way, because running in this case of this pack is actually sprinting, and jog is actually running or fast walking, whatever, which I think match really well for you know, a game like this where you're, you know, carrying heavy weapons and whatnot. So I think that's pretty good. So we'll drag those in as the default. So let's do default, and we'll drag this in as a default state. One other thing, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned this already, but height, I'm changing that to 1.8, and then center 1.95. It simply matches slightly better with the size of the actual mesh. The default collider is just too big. Because as you'll notice, like, default character mesh is always around 1.8, 1.80 meters, and not 2 meters. They never really are. And as you can see, that's a good match. It's a pretty good match. So yeah, let's try these. Let's try this out. How this locomotion looks. It looks pretty cool, I think. Obviously, we don't have we don't have a pistol in the hand yet, but I think it looks pretty awesome. If we walk like this, they look pretty good, and if we sprint, yeah, I like the look of these. I think they look pretty cool. Yeah, pretty good animations, and yeah, I really like them. So cool. And that's it for the basic setup. So now let's head over to the revolver. So if you don't have the example scenes installed for shooter, we have shooter examples here in the module manager. Just install those, because I'll just be modifying the default revolver, I think, into a pistol. It's just easier, because why not? So let's create a trigger, and this is going to be on start. Remove. So on start, yeah. Draw, weapon, player, revolver, and we'll be modifying that, by the way. And then ammo action. So I'm going to do add to magazine, so just bullets, and I'm going to do 9, so I'll make it a 9 bullet gun. I know that by default the revolver is only 6. I'll change that to 9, and then we do another one, and that's add to storage. Or we'll do set storage, actually. So set magazine might be better. So 9, and then I don't know, 90. Maybe that's a bit much, but that's okay. So we'll just hit play now, just to see what it looks like. And yeah, obviously those don't have the proper locomotions, so it's not going to look nice whatsoever. Yeah, okay, so let's do that again. So let's have a look at the revolver. So I think this is the revolver. There we go. So I'm going to rename this to a pistol. So we're not really doing a revolver, we're doing a pistol. Then for the state, we're going to use our default state, so pistol locomotion default. Then for the aiming, we're going to be using our pistol aim locomotion. We're not using a mask. We have a full locomotion set, so there's no need for a mask. And when it comes to the lower body rotation, I think 10 is enough, but we can mess around with that a bit. Then next up we have the revolver prefab, and yeah, we'll need a different model for that. Obviously, we'll need the pistol. So let's head into Polygon Military prefabs, weapons. There we go. Bunch of modular stuff, which is cool. I think this pistol is pretty good. Yeah, I'm fine with this. This is okay. I don't know really what the difference is with the metal one. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just use the default. I think that's fine. Cool. So 90, and I just want the pistol to match how the revolver is already set up, so that the muzzle just matches those, because you know, makes life simpler. I think that's pretty good. It's a good match. Awesome. We don't need the actual revolver mesh anymore, and on the pistol we just need to make sure that the mesh collider is actually turned off, or removed actually in total. Prefab, let's unpack it so it doesn't update the actual original prefab. We have a bunch of cool stuff here, so mag, slide trigger. Those are customizable. It's actually some cool things can be done with this, and you know, I might actually do dedicate that in the video so that we're actually really replacing a mag. The slide is actually really functional and the trigger actually is really functional. I think that's a cool thing to do in a video to show you how it can quite easily be done, because it doesn't really have to be that difficult to do that. We're not going to do that now, but I think it's a pretty cool thing to do in a video. Cool. So now it's about placement, and for placement the easiest thing is actually doing it in game mode, placing it correctly, and then just adjusting it. We're not seeing anything on the character, so let's have a look if the actions are actually executing correctly, and otherwise we'll adjust it, of course. So clavicle, right shoulder, elbow, hand. Yeah, it's there. Most likely it's just really far away. Yeah, it is. Cool. So let's head back to the hand, or you know, the player actually in general. Oh wow, it's really far away, the clone. So let's change that all to 0. Oh, sorry. Most likely we'll need to slightly adjust it again once we do the aim, but we can already do a basic placement right now, and then we'll add the aim triggers and the shoot triggers, so we actually have a start, but just for it to not look too you know, clumsy. Yeah, that's looks okay for now. I'm pretty sure it's going to be wrong once we do the aim, because that's where we really have to properly set it up. But for now it's pretty good. Now, one of the important things I do want to highlight when you're doing this is make sure that you're actually selecting the parent and not accidentally selecting the model. That's happened to me so many times, and then you know, you look and it's all wrong. Cool. So we need those values. So what I'm going to do is I'll do a snip. I'll snip those values, and then I'll place those values. So I have the values on my second screen, but you can just, you know, copy them over if you happen to use Cinti and this gun as well. So we'll go back, and I think now I renamed it to pistol. Yeah, there we go, pistol. And we need to change the names, the values. So 0.169. 0.0179. Perfect. And again, we'll need to readjust these values once we set up the aiming, but at least it, you know, it feels a bit better in the meantime. So let's set up our basic, all of our basic actions for shooting, reloading, etc., which luckily is actually quite simple to do. So we'll do a trigger, combat, which will expand at some point. I'm pretty sure we'll add some cool things to this, but for now, we'll just do key down. And then R. There we go. We'll do some conditions. I don't know if there's actually some useful shooter conditions we could be using here. Yeah, okay. That's actually quite useful. So current weapon, player weapon, if it's full, then we're not going to do anything. And otherwise we'll do reload. I think that's a nice touch actually. Wait till complete. I think that's actually a nice touch. So if the weapon is full, we're not going to go through the reload animation. So if you accidentally press it, if you already reloaded, we won't have that issue. So yeah, I think that's a nice touch. Cool. So we have reload. Then next trigger, mouse down. Left mouse to shoot, right mouse to aim. Then we're going to do a condition here. And we're going to add a global variable, and I'll explain in a bit, so I don't have any at the moment. So we'll do global variable string, and then weapon, and then pistol 01. The name really literally doesn't matter whatsoever. So pistol 01, let's copy that over. So string global variable weapon is this. Then we're going to do shoot, weapon shoot, single. Now the reason I'm adding this is basically what we'll do is once we set up our inventory system with different weapons is we'll assign string names. And by the way, these don't have to be visible in anything, so the name really doesn't matter that much as long as you can recognize it, because some weapons will have burst fire, for example, some will auto fire, and then we'll need to adjust these settings. So that's why assigning a string to it. So by default, pistol 01, I'm going to give that name to the variable. So we already did it, sorry. And yeah, once we change that variable to, for example, a M16, which most of the time will be burst, you know, we'll burst fire instead. And then we could also add, you know, switching it up, actually changing fire modes, so we can have some fun with that. So yeah, for now I'll just keep it like this, and we might reevaluate that and change the naming of it a bit, but the system remains exactly the same. So condition shooting, and you know what, we're good changing it right now. So single, so we'll rename it, that way we need less names, actually makes a lot of sense. Fire mode single. So if we equip a weapon, yeah, okay, it makes a lot more sense actually. So we'll do it based on fire modes. So by default that's set to single for the pistol. Once we expand, add more weapons, semi-auto, full auto, burst, we'll have some fun with that. So cool. Then we need another trigger, which is going to be mouse down off the right, and we'll need a mouse up, there we go, for the right as well. And we'll do a couple of things here. So this will be obviously aiming, but we'll also do some camera action to, you know, bring the action a bit closer to us. Not sure if we need any conditions. I think for now this is actually fine, because we're always armed in this case, so I don't think we need a condition. So aim, weapon aim, camera direction, and then stop aiming. Sweet. Yeah, so for the camera action, let's rename this as well to start aim, and this will be stop aim. Cool. To add some easing, to make it look slightly better, we're not going to change any camera settings, we'll just change camera motor. So we'll do camera motor aim, which can be the same for every weapon item except for snipers maybe, but everything else is fine. So camera, change camera, aim, really short, small, you know, really really short easing, yeah, like this. We'll switch to the default, there we go. And what we'll change with this is definitely the zoom, so maybe that's a bit too much. We'll try that out, and we can change the offsets while in play mode to make sure we get the right look. The only thing you can't really change in play mode is the initial zoom, which is a shame, but that's okay. Cool. So yeah, this is actually not enough. And then yeah, I think we just need to we'll need to adjust the aim a bit. So 1.5, and we'll do adjust the zoom to 1.2. Let's give that a go, see if that's enough. Yeah, I think this is pretty good. Don't mind the pink particles. Once we go a bit more in depth in the next video, we're actually going to be replacing that entire the entire way that system works of particles and impacts and etc. For them to be a lot more accurate. So I think this is pretty good. But yeah, you can adjust the settings obviously to whatever you want. If you don't think this is enough, I think it's pretty solid. I think it's enough. So next thing we'll do right now, and we need to do that in gameplay mode, is we need to remove this this for a moment. Make sure you stay in game mode so you don't lose it. As you can see, we remain aimed here. Then we're going to hit pause, and we're going to adjust the weapon. So the weapon needs to be, you know, it needs to be perfect when we're aiming, and that's that's the biggest challenge. So let's have a look here. Make sure you select the parent. Really important that you select the parent. I'm going to put game mode next to it, zoomed in a bit, because I will need to make sure that it looks correct in game mode. Looks pretty good. And then it needs to be straight as well, because obviously we need to shoot straight ahead. It doesn't look straight here because we have that offset and we have the slight change, but it's straight to the player, kinda, sorta. And that's what matters. So yeah, looks pretty good. Awesome. So again, we'll take a snip of those values. So I'll do that right now. So snip, and I'll put them on my second screen. And there we go. Let's adjust those. So 0.17. It's a bit long, but I'll make it. I want it to be as accurate as possible. There we go. Sweet. We can drag this back here, zoom, put the scale back to how it originally was. Awesome. So yeah, that looks fine and aimed. We're there now as well, so pretty good. Overall solid stuff, pretty happy with that. Now one of the things we'll definitely adjust, so we have a reload and it looks like that, which doesn't match because it's a revolver. Luckily, I have an animation pack that just covers it all, so we'll be using that as well. We need clip size to be 9, by the way. Reload duration, I'll adjust that to the animation, so we'll need to check. By default, sphere cast is set instead of projectile raycast, which I like. I like sphere cast. That's pretty good. Impacts, ignore that for now. We'll have a slightly different approach to that later on. Recoil, I'm fine with it. The spread, yeah, it's all pretty fine. Cool. So what we need to adjust is the animations for shooting did match. I wasn't actually bothered me at all actually, but we can adjust those as well to match the animation packs we have and the guns you have. So let's have a look at in place. Oh, holster and fire. There we go. So Let's crouch, needs to stand. Stand, fire, single. There we go. Sorry, took a while. Took a while before I was able to find it. Cool, so stand, fire, single, and stand, relaxed, reload. Cool. Yeah, okay, let's give those a try. Oh, not save as, sorry. Save. Let's give those a try, and I think we'll be pretty good with our base setup. I think we've got all of the, you know, the basic foundation covered. So we can walk around, we can run, we can, you know, shoot, aim, and once we shoot, it's a bit more subtle, definitely. And when we reload, yeah, that's wow, that's pretty fast. Okay. But yeah, we can't reload now, which I like as well. I know it's a small touch, but I like that we can't reload when it's full. Pretty fast. I actually like that, so I'm not going to change it actually. Yeah, sweet. So all of the basics are set up now. So we you know, we have the default look and feel. I personally like this. If you think this is too up close with everything, you know, that's completely fine. You can change that to whatever you want. I'm personally a fan of this type of look, but yeah, that's a personal touch. Now the last things we need to do as well, obviously, is regarding crouching. And we'll need a trigger for that, and crouching actually makes things quite a bit more complicated, because you have to make a decision. Do you want crouched shooting in the game? Do you actually want the moment you start shooting that you stand up? Quite a lot involved into this, so that's the last big step. So trigger, crouch. We can just do a global variable for this. That's actually fine. We don't need that to be on the player, so we can do a global variable, player crouch. Hope I'm spelling crouching right, actually. By default, that's going to be turned off. So key down, I'm doing left control. I think that's a good button. So left control, there we go. Yeah, I think this is a good button for crouching, but you can change it to whatever you want. We need conditions here, and that's it. I'm going to do it, you know, crouching is going to be a toggle. I personally like that, instead of like having to keep pressing a button, but yeah. So we'll do global variable, no, bool, sorry. Bool, global variable, player crouch. If it's turned off, then we'll turn it on and we're crouching. And that's simply a state change, character state, which we still need to create. I'm just going to lock this just to be sure we can continue. There we go. We'll drag that in, and we're going to set that to layer 2. Transition is fine. I'm not going to change any of that. And the only other thing is height. And I know that's player height needs to be adjusted as well, simply because the animation goes into a crouching position. That doesn't impact the collider at all. So height is going to be 1. Yeah. And then the else conditions is just going to be the opposite. So turn it off. We're going to reset this state, and height is going back to 1.8. So yeah, this is because of the collider. Otherwise the collider doesn't actually change. So let's start off with this. So I'm doing default crystal, default crouch, and basically this is going to be a repetition of what we did before. So we'll go to the looping, and then we'll drag in all of the same animations again, but then the crouched versions. So yeah, not going to show that. You can drag that in yourself, and we'll be right back. Cool. So as you might see here, you know, for when it comes to crouching, we only have walking, and we don't have running, and we're not going to add running because you can't run while crouching. I mean, maybe some games do it, but it makes absolutely zero sense. So we're not going to be doing that. So when it comes to crouch, or once we press, when it comes to run, sorry, when we press that button, so for you know, key down, running, we're going to add an additional condition here that is going to supersede the first one. So we'll drag that up actually. There we go. Okay, that was a bit odd. So yeah, we'll add the bool global variable player crouch if that's true, and then here we'll add just the default. So if that's true, then we're going to do exactly the same. So we'll add this, we'll add this, but we're going to execute another set of actions, and that is this one, which is going to be stop crouch, so that crouch turns off, and that needs to happen first. So this one, wait to finish, and then everything else will happen. So let's try this out. Let's see if this actually is functional. Cool. So as you can see, you know, it's nice. We're crouching now, and once I hit run, we're running, and if I let go, we're not going back to crouch. Now when we inspect the player, and let's turn on gizmos here, you see that the character collider is complete as well. So here now I had it to 1, which might be a bit slow for height, but that's okay. And then yeah, we're back to running. And the reason I'm doing that is because, well, you know, it doesn't make sense to be running when you're crouching. We also need to safeguard that it can be the other way around. So this is the problem now. If I have enough stamina, if I press crouch when I'm running, it will still change the collider, even though it's not changing the animations. What can happen here really really depends on you know, on what you want to do, because most of the time, once you press the crouch button when you're running in a game like, or a shooter like this, we'll have some type of slide animation to put us into crouch, for example, or something like that, and that's pretty cool. Makes it pretty action oriented. Whatever we do, we need to make absolutely sure that if we do press that button, that we're not going to just change the collider, because that makes it cheating, because then, you know, basically you almost can't be shot anymore. So yeah, that's what we need to do. So when it comes to the crouch, pressing it, we need a condition for that as well. So we have the defaults here, and we're going to add another clause, and we can up that later. So default, there we go. And yeah, we need to basically state if we're running yes or no. Now luckily we have a property for that, so character property player is running. And what do we want to happen in that case? So by default, if we are, you know, we'll do this. So we'll copy those over actually. So we'll copy that over, copy this over, and we'll copy this over. That's all fine. And the only thing we need to decide now is, what are we going to do? Are we going to have like a sort of slide or things like that? So yeah, let's set this up. Cool, so in order to do this, I am using a free Mixamo animation, which I'll link in the description as well, of course. So it's a free animation. Important thing, once you import this, make sure to set rig to humanoids. Create from this model, hit apply, and then in the animation, make sure to bake in these two, but not this. Awesome. Then when it comes to the conditions, let's head over to our additional conditions. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a gesture, which will be for the player. That's going to be our Mixamo animation. We're going to use 0.25 and then 0.435, something like that. We'll do a wait of 0.6 seconds. Then we're going to execute actions. Stop, run. And wait to finish. And yeah, that should be it. So let's have a look. So save. And then the important thing, of course, let's collapse the first one. This needs to be on top. This is the first one that needs to be checked. It's exactly the same, but it checks, is it running, yes or no? Cool. So I've got the gizmos on, and I'm actually going to press the player as well so we can actually see the collider. So if we change this, we're all good. Run. Stop, run, we're all good and all perfect. And if we crouch and then start running, we're all good as well. And yeah, now let's try the last one. So we're running and then we press crouch. We do the slide and we basically go into crouch. And then if I let go, if I press it again, we go into that mode, and you know, it all works like normal, but we have the cool little slide. Which is awesome. We're no longer consuming any, even if I keep pressing it. As you see, I need to let go and press it again just to make sure. So we're not accidentally consuming any mana anymore either, which is awesome. Maybe the one height was a bit too much, but yeah, it is what it is. You can change that yourself, but yeah, I think this is pretty cool, adding that slide. You can change the height before that if you prefer, that you straight have that advantage, that if you're sliding that you can't be hit, which actually makes a lot of sense. And what that looks like is simply this. So you do it before the gesture, which I think, you know, it's actually quite logical. So yeah, we do the slide, which is awesome, and you know, we're in crouching, and yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I really like having that that little effect of you know, like when you run, we slide into crouch. I think that looks really, really cool. And you know, it's always nice when we can do that just with a free animation from Mixamo, which is perfect. So that's it for this this first setup. I think we've done a great job so far. We'll delve into the whole crouching, shooting, weapon changing a bit later. Reason for that is because it makes more sense to set all of that up once we get to the stage of multiple weapons, because we need to keep that into consideration with that system as well. So for now, we've got our solid foundation, first setup. Quite happy with this, and yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.